6:30 in the morning. You're half asleep, mug in hand, watching that white swirl bloom across your black coffee. Same bottle you've grabbed for years. Same shelf, same aisle, same routine you don't think twice about because you've done it 10,000 times before. But that swirl isn't cream. In most bottles on that shelf, it's water, sugar, and an oil that was sitting in a factory tank long before it ever met a coffee bean. You are not creaming your coffee, you are diluting it, and paying a premium to do it every single morning without knowing. Real cream came from one place, a cow and a farmer who skimmed the fat off the top of fresh milk. That's it. No stabilizers, no emulsifiers, no 14-ingredient panel to decode before 8 in the morning. American diners in the 1950s served exactly that, poured straight from a small tin pitcher onto the counter, table to table, cup to cup, refilled by hand from a jug in the back. By the time Coffee Mate launched in 1901 as the first widely sold powdered non-dairy creamer, it wasn't replacing some elaborate dairy process. It was replacing a one-ingredient product with something engineered to never need refrigeration. That is all coffee cream was ever supposed to be. One ingredient, one process, one purpose. Nothing to audit because there was nothing hidden. Then math got involved, and it got involved fast. Real dairy cream costs roughly 4 times more per gallon than water, sugar, and palm oil combined, and it spoils within days instead of months. For a beverage company shipping product across a continent and stocking it on unrefrigerated shelves for up to a year, that math wasn't a footnote. It was the entire business case. So manufacturers engineered a synthetic stand-in. Water bulked up with cheap oil, bound together with emulsifiers, tinted with beta-carotene to fake the pale gold of real cream. They're allowed to call it non-dairy because of a decades-old FDA labeling allowance that lets sodium caseinate, a milk protein, sit inside a product marketed as dairy-free as long as the box also carries the FALS-PA-required allergen disclosure, contains milk. 2 contradictory claims, printed on the same panel, both technically legal. Powdered versions push the loophole further. Many still lean on partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, the exact category of fat tied to trans fat formation in the body, while printing 0G trans fat boldly on the front. That claim stays legal under 21 CFR ASABAR 1.9C2, which allows manufacturers to round down to 0 as long as the true amount stays under half a gram per serving. Read that twice. The FDA doesn't require 0 trans fat for that label to appear. It requires the number to be small enough to round away on paper. Nobody stops at exactly 1 serving of powder stirred into 1 cup of coffee, and the label was never built with that assumption in mind either. Add to that the FDA's own definition of natural flavor under 21 CFR ASABAR 101.22, a category broad enough to cover dozens of chemically derived compounds as long as they originate from a plant or animal source at some point in their processing history. Natural on a creamer label tells you almost nothing about how many steps that flavor took to reach the bottle. You're not paying for cream anymore, you're paying for a shelf-stable oil and water emulsion, engineered in a lab to survive a warehouse longer than it survives your own refrigerator, wrapped in language written to sound like the opposite of what it is. We pulled the ingredient panels from every major creamer brand on the shelf. We cross-referenced them against FDA labeling regulations and USDA dairy standards. Then we ran the numbers, brand by brand, ingredient by ingredient, claim by claim, until the pattern was impossible to ignore. Here's what we found. Coffee Mate Original Liquid markets itself as non-dairy, cholesterol-free, and gluten-free. 3 health claims stacked on 1 small plastic tub, designed to be read in under 2 seconds. The truth sits 2 lines down on the same label. Water and coconut oil first, with sodium caseinate, a milk derivative, added right after. The word non-dairy on this box describes lactose content specifically, not the milk protein sitting in the second half of the ingredient statement. You're drinking a dairy-derived product marketed as though it isn't one, and the only place that gets corrected is the small print allergen line most people skip entirely. Verdict: non-dairy in name only. Coffee Mate Original Powder calls itself America's #1 creamer, built for the office break room, the church coffee hour, the pantry shelf that never runs empty. Its second ingredient, right after corn syrup solids, is hydrogenated vegetable oil, kept legal on the front label by that same rounding rule that lets manufacturers print 0G as long as the true number stays under half a gram per serving. International delight. Fat-free French vanilla wears the fat-free claim like a health badge on the front of the bottle, positioned right where a shopper's eye lands first. To replace the fat they engineered out of the formula, they added titanium dioxide for whiteness, cellulose gel and cellulose gum for thickness, and polysorbate 60 to hold the whole emulsion together. 4 separate additives standing in for the one ingredient they removed. Titanium dioxide remains FDA approved as a color additive under 21 CFR for 73.575, even as other regulators overseas have moved to restrict it in food. Fat-free doesn't mean simple here. It means substituted, additive for fat, 4 times over. Verdict: they didn't remove fat, they replaced it with chemistry. Silk Vanilla Soy Creamer brands itself around the words simple ingredients and nothing but good, printed directly on the carton in the kind of clean, minimalist font that signals health before you've read a single ingredient. Its actual ingredient list runs 9 items deep, with cane sugar landing as the second ingredient, right behind soy milk and maltodextrin, a fast-digesting starch with a glycemic index that can rival table sugar, folded in under the 2% or less line alongside palm oil. Simple is a feeling on this label, not a fact you can verify against the actual panel once you count past ingredient 3. Verdict: 9 ingredients marketed as none. Cane sugar outranking dairy behind a French name that has nothing to do with France. Titanium dioxide replacing the fat you thought you were avoiding by choosing the fat-free version. A trans fat loophole hiding under a rounding rule most shoppers have never heard of. Non-dairy printed directly over a disclosed milk protein on the same label in the same breath. 9 ingredients sold to you as simplicity itself, wrapped in a font that was chosen specifically to make you stop reading. 5 brands, 5 different ways of saying one thing on the front of the bottle and something else entirely on the back. You can audit any creamer sitting in your fridge right now in under 60 seconds. No app, no research, just the bottle already in your hand. First, flip it over and read past the first 3 words of the ingredient list. Whatever comes right after water tells you the real priority the manufacturer built around, cream or sugar. And that ranking never lies no matter what the front label claims. Second, scan for caseinate anywhere on the panel. If it's there, non-dairy only ever meant lactose-free, never dairy-free, no matter how many times the box repeats the word. Third, count anything ending in 8, ID, or OC past ingredient number 5. That number is your real stabilizer and additive count, and it's almost always higher than the front-of-box marketing would have you guess. Fourth, compare the fat grams on the nutrition panel against the length of the ingredient list itself. When fat sits near 0, but the ingredient list keeps going for 8 or 9 items. Something was engineered in to replace that fat, and it's rarely an improvement worth the trade. Run all 4 checks and you'll know more about that bottle in a minute than most people learn in a decade of drinking it. The label never lies if you know how to read it. 3 brands earned a place in your fridge, and they earned it the same way every single time. By matching their marketing to their ingredient panel, word for word, with nothing left to translate. Coffee Mate Natural Bliss. Sweet cream runs 4 ingredients total: skim milk, cream, sugar, natural flavor, for around $4 to $5 a bottle. No stabilizers required because real cream doesn't need help staying emulsified the way an oil and water mixture does. It tastes like cream because it's built from cream, full stop, nothing else doing the work. Nut Pods. Original unsweetened uses coconut cream and almonds as its base, carries 0 grams of sugar per serving, and runs about $6 for an 11.2-ounce bottle. A real cost, but one you're paying for a short, verifiable ingredient list instead of a health claim you have to take on faith. No sugar means no hidden math to run before your first sip of the day. Califia Farms Unsweetened. Better Half blends almond milk and coconut cream with a short list of plant-based stabilizers. 0 grams of sugar, roughly $5.50 for 32 ounces. Built specifically as a 1-to-1 substitute for dairy half and half without leaning on carrageenan to get there. Every bottle that hides sugar behind the word French, or hides a disclosed milk protein behind the word non-dairy, or hides 4 additives behind the word fat-free is betting on one simple thing: that you'll never flip it over and read past the front. Next time you reach for your creamer, flip it over. Read line 1. That line will tell you everything you actually need to know.